Hello, everyone. I am trying to find where my slides are so that we can get going here because there we go. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I am so excited to be here with you and to be the kickoff speaker, to be talking to you about how you shine because this is such an important topic. I want you to continue to be the brilliant people that I know you are and the brilliant women that you are. So I want to get in and get going and get us kicked off. You know, a few years ago, I have to tell you this story. So a few years ago, I faced something that actually stopped me cold. I was diagnosed for the second time with breast cancer. Now, what happened was it completely took me by surprise. What I find is really interesting is how something like that can actually be so hard, but can also give something back to you. And that's actually what happened to me. Because for me, what it gave me back was clarity. And it was clarity about how I've been pouring into my business, pouring into my clients, pouring into everybody, my family, my friends, and actually not taking time to replenish me and to fill my own cup. So the other thing that did, it also gave me clarity. And it was clarity on how we show up as leaders, and especially as women who lead. And that's women who lead whether we have the title or whether we don't have the title. I realized that I had been pouring into others, as I know so many of you do, and wasn't saving enough for myself. So let me introduce you to who I am so you know who you're going to be with for the next 20 minutes or so. I'm Alexis Gladstone, and I have spent over the last 20 plus years growing the current and the next generation of leaders. My work is all about helping leaders grow with clarity, confidence, and especially for us women, with heart. My work is all about this because, and I really love doing it with and for leaders because what I've realized is when we have that clarity, when we actually pour into ourselves and have that confidence, we will inspire the world, which I know those all of you who are part of Women Changing the World are doing. So with our short time that we have together, I want to walk you through some different things and really have you pause and reflect because we don't do that enough. So I'm hoping that you'll do that with me for the little bit of time that we have together. So what are we going to be talking about? You know, there's so many different things that I believe as women we bring to the table, and they're fairly innate for us. And I had a hard time whittling down the list to those that I thought would be the most impactful. But what I really want to talk about today are three things: communication, creativity, and resilience. And I chose those because, as I said before, they are innate for us, but we don't always think about it that way. We sometimes think about, well, this is just the way I am. This is just the way I show up. But in reality, if we actually stop to pause and reflect on what and how we're doing it, we can actually take it to the next level and do even more. So let's get into these three. And the first one is all about communication. And by the way, if you see me looking over to my right a little bit, there's just some points that I want to make sure that I don't miss because I think they're so important. So I start with communication because communication is the backbone of everything we do. I always say businesses and relationships are all about communication. And if you read a lot of the studies, if you read a lot of the reports that are out there, organizations really take this soft skill, if that's what you'd like to call it, and they put it in the top in terms of what's important, whether they're looking for it in their leaders of how they promote people, whether they're looking for it for people who are interviewing to come into their organization, or looking for it for even those out of college. And it's really important to really think about communication in terms of all of the things that it encompasses. It encompasses things like how we speak, how we write, how we tell stories. It's all of these different things. It's a huge, huge topic that we could spend actually a couple days talking about. But if we do it well, and for the most part, as women, we do, we just sometimes need to up our game a little bit, or we sometimes need to step back and pause to make sure we're being clear. When we do those types of things, we will show up how we want to. And there's a couple pieces of it that I think are really important to talk about when it comes to communication. You know, this huge umbrella that I talked about, speaking, writing, storytelling. But there's something that's not always talked about, and that's listening. Think about it. Children learn to talk when they're 1 or 2. They learn to read and write usually by the time they're 6 or 7. They definitely know how. Some of them learn earlier because maybe they have an older sibling that helped them, that taught them, but they're never taught how to listen. They're told to listen, but we're never taught how to do it. And as adults, we don't always think about what that really means to be a really strong, active, good listener. Listening is all about being present. It's about how you show up. It's about putting down the distractions, putting away the cell phone, turning off your computer, facing the person, having good eye contact, using nonverbals by nodding your head, anything like that, and using that in a very thoughtful and productive way. So I want you to kind of think about what we do with listening and think about where in the world you'd like to show up with more intention in your communication and listening. And after all the things, each of the topics I talk about, we're going to have some reflection questions. Please feel free to take a picture of it, to write it down, so that you can reflect on the ones that have meaning for you. Now, there's another piece of communication that I like to talk about because I actually think it goes hand in hand with listening. And it's all about asking good questions. Listen, we are all really good at talking, and then we start to listen. But we also want to be able to ask good questions because by doing so, we invite dialogue. We invite learning for us and for the individual or the groups that we're talking with. Think about what you've learned when you've really listened. Maybe you've changed your mind on something. So asking good questions is, you have to, in order to do it, you, by the way, also have to listen to the answers so you can respond, so you can continue the dialogue. So I challenge you to think about, are you not only asking questions, are you asking enough questions? Are you asking questions that really are thought-provoking, that really help you build those relationships? Because that's where you're going to learn so much. So here's the question for you on asking good questions. Where in your life can you incorporate this? Where can you ask better or more questions so that not only will you learn, but you're also going to build stronger relationships. So let's move on to creativity. I told you that was the second one, and it's about being and bringing your creative self. Now, some people might hear creativity and they'll be like, well, I'm not creative. I'm not a painter. I'm not a sculptor. I'm not a dancer. I'm not a choreographer. That's artistic. We are all creative. We just don't think about ourselves that way most of the time. I know it took me a long time to say, yes, I really am creative. I can really own this. I'm creative when I'm designing training and delivering training. I'm creative when I'm designing a coaching session and helping somebody navigate through what they're trying to get better at or what they're trying to overcome. That takes creativity. And I guarantee you are all creative also. You are creative in how you show up to those hard conversations that you get through. You are creative in how you problem solve, because a lot of times you're not going to be able to do the same thing you've always done. So how you end up doing that is really creative. And what I invite you to do, I actually want you to step back and reflect and claim your creativity, because you have it. And being creative is what's going to help you continue to shine and continue to be brilliant and take it all to the next level. So where are you overdue to find a new or a different solution, to work on something in a different way, even if it's something small? Where might you want to be doing that? Now, this next piece I want to talk about, I get so excited about because it relates to our creativity. It's once we're open to being the creative person that we are, we can do this. And that's getting out of our own way and getting out of our comfort zone. Look, we pour ourselves into everybody and everything. That's what I talked about when I started. And part of the reason we stay in our comfort zone is it makes it easy for us to do that, right? We can sit there and we can kind of go on autopilot on a lot of things because we're so focused on everybody else and not ourselves. So sitting in our comfort zone, feeling safe, feeling in control is where it's at. And then we start thinking about, well, maybe I can try or should try something different. And that's when we move into our fear zone. And when we get into our fear zone, what happens? Well, we bring in our own self-doubt. And we all have it. And we can be our own worst enemies with our own self-doubt. But what's even worse, when we let other people bring in the self-doubt about us. When we let other people that we talk about, we want to try something new, and we let them talk us out of it. We let them question why. That's even worse. What I guarantee for you is if you can move from your comfort zone and through the fear zone, you are going to get to the learning zone. That's where you're going to get new knowledge, new skills, new ahas. That's where you're going to be able to tackle that problem that's been challenging you that you've never been able to tackle before. That's where, once you do it, your comfort zone gets bigger. And then eventually, what you do is you end up in the growth mode. And that's what those of us who are all involved in Women Changing the World, it's all about. We're not here because we want to be comfortable. We're here because we want to grow. We want to push. We not only want to change for ourselves, but we want to make that impact. And I guarantee if you start making that impact for yourself, you'll make it for organizations, and you'll be changing culture. I'm actually going through this right now for myself. I am developing a new part of my business. I'm developing a new offering. And I decided I can't do it the same way I've always done it. I've always done it. I need to know that it's a 100% complete before I can take and launch it. Well, I'm going through this boot camp with this program where it's helping me look at all the different pieces, and it's helping me iterate, and it's helping me think it through. And yes, it's uncomfortable which kind of puts me in that fear zone, but I'm learning so much, and I'm becoming much more comfortable with the idea of once I do get this launched, it might not be 100% of where I thought it was going to be. And I'm willing to iterate, and I'm willing to grow with it and let it grow and develop to where it needs to be. So I can attest in real time that if you let yourself do this, it actually works. So where and when are you staying in your comfort zone? And where do you want to step through that zone of fear so you can actually get to the other side, so you can actually learn and grow? I challenge you to think about that. Now, one of the things I like to do when I'm talking to a group, and whether no matter how or when you're seeing this, is to give you some tools. And some of you may know this tool. It's called Yes and it comes from the world of improvisation. So that's when a group of people will get up on stage and somebody will start by telling a story or talking about a scenario. And the only thing the others on the stage can do is say yes and to build on the story or to grow what's being talked about. They're not allowed to do anything else. Well, we don't do this enough in our lives because a lot of times we stop at no and we do it to ourselves. Again, whether it's to stay in our comfort zone because it's easy, because we don't feel we have the time. But what if we said yes and? What if we opened up to something we're hearing by asking these good questions I talked about before, is opening up some new ideas? And what if we took a pause and stopped and said, okay, I'm not going to say no. Maybe I don't say yes, maybe I say maybe, but maybe and. Just don't stop it with no. Again, I can tell you, I am living this real time, talking about this program that I'm in developing that I want to launch. I've been sharing it with other people. I've been talking about it. So to get feedback, to hear what people are think about it. And people are asking me some really great questions that are making me pause and say, you know what? Never thought about that. That's something that maybe I should add in or could add in to begin with. Or, never thought about that. I might not be able to do that with the first launch, but it's something I can build and grow into. I'm really trying to be open so that whatever this is that develops and how it evolves is going to be great. And it's going to continue to evolve just as we want to continue to evolve. So this is a great little tool. And you can use it with yourself or you can use it with other people. You can just kind of play with it in your own head or write it down. So what do you have coming up for you that instead of immediately saying no, you can say yes and? Think about that. What might that look like? Okay, let's get into the final one, which is all about resiliency. Now, let's talk about what resilience isn't. It's not about being tough. It's not about kind of grinding through and pretending that things don't affect you, because they do. It's acknowledging that they do and figuring out what's the path through it. What's the path forward? We all have stories of resilience. And guess what? We don't think of them as stories of resilience because a lot of times we think, well, that's just who I am. That's how I operate. So this is what I'm going to do. But I guarantee if you told that story to someone else, they would be like, wow. Kind of like my breast cancer stories. I mean, I've never thought of myself as resilient and I've just gone through it. And I'm not the only woman that's done it. And that's why it's like, I know 8 out of 10 women have been experiencing breast cancer. So, how is it that I'm resilient? Well, as people have reminded me, I've kept my business going during two bouts of treatment. I haven't given up my business or getting through the treatments. So, we all have those stories, but we don't think about them and we don't talk about them. So, to help you, a lot of times actually what we like to do, something happens, we have this setback, and the first thought is, well, I want to get my favorite blanket and a really good book and, you know, go curl up in my bed for a while and just read. And it's okay to do that for a short time. But then you have to move through it and you have to move forward. So whether you find that resilience, your inner strength on your own, or what I have found out, which is even more important, is surrounding yourself with the most amazing women who can be and help you through it, who can be different parts of whatever you need. You might need different women. or different people in your life. It doesn't just have to be women. Those who will remind you who you are and how strong you are. Those who are going to challenge you to take that next step. Those are going to help you think through the questions. But being able, whether you do it alone or whether you do it with the support of others, I know you can and will do it. And the other thing you need to remember is because you've already done it before, history matters. And we don't think about how often we have actually done it. We've all done the hard things. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a pause and acknowledge that you've done hard things. And I want you to look back on your life. I don't care whether you look back to last week, last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I want you to pick one challenge and think about how you got through it so that you can prove to yourself that you're resilient and you have that strength. And once you've thought about one, think about the next one. Because having those stories and understanding them are what's going to continue to build our confidence and our strength and continue to move us into the stratospheres that we're trying to achieve. So back to giving you some tips. Here are some of the ways that I like to think things that can help you be resilient. I practice mindfulness, and mindfulness I know means different things to different people. For me, it might be taking a pause before, practicing 30 to 60 seconds of just focusing on my breath before I do something like this, before I go into a tough meeting or a tough conversation. It might be taking mindful walks where you don't listen to music or anything, or you only listen to music, or you take in the surroundings all around you. But mindfulness breaks can really help build and maintain our resilience. And by the way, taking breaks does too. We do not have to be those super women. We do not have to be on all the time. Not taking breaks is not a sign of strength because eventually our cup's going to empty. So we need to make sure that we take those breaks, that we recharge, because if we don't recharge, we can't be there for others. It's impossible. And then also, it's all about having self-compassion. I love this phrase that, and I don't know who actually said it, but never talk to yourself in a way you wouldn't talk to your best friend. And we do it all the time. We are our own worst critics. Have compassion for yourself. Give yourself grace. I had a conversation with somebody just last week, and I was apologizing for not doing something I had promised her I was going to get her. And she's like, Alexis, I know you have a lot on your plate. I know you have a lot going on. Give yourself some grace. And I was so touched to hear that. And it was such a great reminder. And then also, as I talked about, with resilience of having those people around you, who's your personal sounding board? Who are those people that can help you in those times you need help? Maybe it's one person you go to all the time. Maybe it's different people for different things depending on what you need. But whatever it is, have those people. Know who they are and know when and how you can rely on them. So take one of them. What might make the biggest difference for you if you practice one of those this week? So here's the thing I want you to remember. This is all about you. This is all about taking a pause to recharge, taking a pause to reevaluate what you're bringing to the table, because by doing that, you're going to shine even more than you already do. And that's what this is all about. If you've taken nothing away from this, none of the tips, if nothing else resonated with you, I hope that this piece does. So as my last slide, I would love to connect with you. And here's the different ways. Oops, not quite there. It's Alexis at inteleadinc.com. But you can find me via email. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to my website. And if you're interested, I actually have a gift for anybody. If you can scan the QR code or use the code at the website at the bottom, I actually have a listening assessment. Not to say, are you good or bad at listening, but it's to remind ourselves of things we practice really well and things we might want to get better at practicing. I always think, as good as we are, having those reminders, because we know so much and we learn so much, we forget a lot too. So that's what this listening assessment is all about. Go ahead and download it, use it, share it. I love sharing that when people share what I've shared with them, when they share it with others. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for Women Changing the World. I was so honored to be with you tonight.